The purpose of this portion of the new employee orientation is to provide an introduction to keeping you safe on the job. Fall exposures, chemical exposure, and unprotected electrical sources are examples of some of the hazards you may encounter on the job. Safety on the job means looking out for hazards and responding to those hazards when they're discovered. Providing guidelines for addressing those hazards is the purpose of this orientation. And hey, always remember that your safety is the most important aspect of your job. Report hazards to your supervisor immediately, and if authorized, correct them before they affect someone else. Remember that safety on the job depends on you. Some basic safety rules that apply to every job site are things like wearing shirts with sleeves, wearing long pants and construction grade boots every day, along with wearing seat belts in company vehicles and wearing hard hats, safety glasses, respirators, and any other safety gear where required. Plus, use basic common sense everywhere, like not standing on a bucket, a box, or some other unsafe surface to work. And while no list can be all-inclusive, the following are the rules of safety for everyone on the job. Follow company safety rules and perform your work in a safe manner that's not dangerous to yourself or to other personnel, to property, or to the equipment. Wear fall protection when required. You shouldn't destroy or remove any property of the owner, another employee, or the customer without permission. Never provoke or engage in a fight, a disturbance, or any horseplay. You should never report for work under the influence of alcohol or controlled substances. Never bring alcohol or controlled substances other than prescribed medication to the job site. Insubordination or refusal to work as directed or interfering with the work of any other employee is not allowed. You should never sleep on the job, never falsify reports involving attendance, absence, sickness, or termination. Don't submit false claims for injury or compensation. Always work your scheduled hours and never leave work early without supervisory approval. Only smoke in areas approved for that activity. Don't use, handle, or dispose of any chemical without proper authorization. You should never override or defeat a safety device. Your employer will provide you with additional information on specific safety rules. A very important ingredient to a safe job site is prohibiting anyone from working under the influence of drugs and/or alcohol during the course of the workday. Drugs and alcohol have no place on the job site. It should be noted that possession of and/or working under the influence of drugs and alcohol is strictly prohibited and grounds for immediate dismissal. If you have a medical problem and are required to take prescription medication, notify your supervisor. If the prescription medication creates a situation where it can affect your safety and health and the safety and health of your coworkers, removal from the job site may be an option. Some employers may require pre-employment drug screening as well as random drug testing as a condition of your employment. They have a right to require this. Keeping the job site safe for everyone is their #1 responsibility. Your employer can review your company's substance abuse program with you. As stated previously, you have a very important role in preventing accidents on the job. Safety is a team effort, and your participation in the safety effort is a condition of employment. In other words, you have the responsibility and accountability for your own safety on the job. The rules and discussions provided in this training program may not cover all of the rules specific to your type of work. Discuss with your employer what other safety rules apply to your job. Remember, these rules have been developed for your protection, so know them and ask questions if you don't understand. Your employer will go to great lengths to provide you with the proper protection necessary for every hazard. Your responsibility is to apply those controls to your work. If you don't understand how the control works, talk to your supervisor. Remember to ask questions of what you do not understand. Safety on the job requires the participation of everyone, from top management to you as a craftsman. To make this effort work, everyone shares the responsibility of protecting themselves and others. As an employee, you have the responsibility to do certain things. Understand and comply with the safety rules in your workplace. Participate in the safety effort. Report all unsafe conditions to your supervisor immediately. Ask questions if you don't understand. Report all injuries immediately, no matter how minor, to your supervisor or to the foreman. Always evaluate your task and the work area for hazards that could affect you and your coworkers. Every day on the job, you'll encounter chemicals in all of their forms: solids, liquids, and gases. For instance, solvents used in paints, particulates generated from working around sandblasting, lead, and gases used in welding and cutting. The purpose of OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard is to provide you with information on the hazards of the chemicals that you'll encounter in the workplace. Knowledge of the chemicals you use and those that you're exposed to is vitally important to your health, both in the short term and the long term. If hazardous chemicals are used in the workplace, OSHA requires the employer to develop a hazard communication program that addresses the use of those hazardous chemicals. First, your employer has developed a written hazard communication program. This program must contain the following elements: chemical labeling. You must understand the labels used on hazardous chemicals. There are a number of different methods of labeling chemicals, and your employer will review these methods with you. However, at a minimum, labels for hazardous chemicals must provide you with the chemical identity. In other words, the name of the chemical. Appropriate hazard warnings. Is the chemical flammable, combustible, and asphyxiant, corrosive, or other type of hazard that could harm you? And the name of the chemical manufacturer or distributor. At a minimum, the above information must be on the labels provided on the product. If you transfer the chemical to another container, for example, you put solvent into a small container, the chemical identity and appropriate hazard warning should follow the product. Simply providing this information, for instance, by using a magic marker or attachable label, goes a long way in protecting other employees. Remember that information is the key to protecting yourself from the hazards of the chemicals used in the workplace. The second element of your employer's written program must provide for the collection and dissemination of material safety data sheets. Material safety data sheets are a key ingredient of understanding the hazards of the chemicals that you use in the workplace. Get in the habit of reviewing material safety data sheets. OSHA requires the employer to maintain an inventory for all hazardous chemicals used in the workplace. A material safety data sheet is required for all hazardous chemicals used or stored on site, and you must have access to these data sheets. Your employer will review the procedure to obtain a copy of the material safety data sheet. The information contained in these data sheets is vital to your safety. Remember, you have the right to know, and the material safety data sheet is the primary tool used to provide this information. Every year, 250,000 new chemicals are introduced into the workplace. A sample data sheet was supplied along with this DVD. Learn how to read and understand the information, and always apply what you know to protect yourself. The third major element of the hazard communication program is providing you with the appropriate protection based on the hazards of the chemicals. Your employer will supply you with the required protective devices related to the hazards of the products used. Remember that personal protective equipment, while limited in many ways, is a primary defense against overexposure to chemicals. Your responsibility is to always wear the appropriate personal protective device whenever you have the potential to be overexposed to a chemical. Your employer will designate a person to manage this function. The next and most important element is educating yourself on the hazards of the chemicals that you use in the workplace. The MSDS is an important ingredient in this process. As part of the training program, your employer will tell you who to contact with questions as well as where to obtain the necessary protective devices. While your employer has a number of responsibilities with regard to this program, it's your responsibility to comply with the provisions of this program as well. Look, do yourself a favor. Read the label, review the material safety data sheets, and use the appropriate protective devices. Throughout the course of your career, you'll be handling materials. Proper body mechanics are essential in reducing the possibility of sustaining injuries to the musculoskeletal system. Strains, sprains, and lower back pain are all attributed to improper body mechanics, awkward postures, and repetitive tasks. When you combine bad mechanics, such as reaching to lift the load, along with awkward postures like bending at the waist to lift, repetitive daily tasks can result in injury. While most of the adult population will have lower back pain at some time during their lives, there are some simple steps to follow to reduce the potential for you to become a statistic. A career without pain is attainable. Get into the habit of warming up, stretching, and revitalizing yourself throughout your workday, and you'll feel better, stay more alert, and most of all, you'll keep yourself safe. The following tips can help to prevent on-the-job injury. There are some very simple rules of thumb whenever you handle materials. One of the most important is to keep your elbows as close to your body as possible. Keeping your elbows close to your body is a very simple concept, yet provides you with years of good body mechanics. Why? Because by simply keeping your elbows close to your sides, you help to ensure good body posture when doing any type of material handling. The benefits of keeping the elbows close to the body are better understood if you understand how leverage, when handling materials, affects both where the location of force is applied and how much force is applied. For instance, if you work with your elbows to your sides, bent at approximately a 90-degree angle, the force applied versus the force expended is roughly 1-to-1. In other words, you're using the muscles of the body to do the work. Simply extending your arms about 6 inches from your body changes the location or focus of the force and increases the amount of force applied to the body. In this case, simply moving the elbows 6 inches away from your body changes the amount of force by a factor of 6-to-1 and changes the location of the force from the fulcrum point at the elbow to the shoulder. Now put this into perspective. If you're lifting material that weighs, say, 50 pounds, the amount of force is now equivalent to 300 pounds, 50 times 6. The location of the force, now at the shoulders, increases the potential for injury. The important point to remember is to think about what you're doing. Ideally, all material handling should be done with the elbows tucked. As you move your arms away from the body, you better start thinking about what you're doing, because the potential for injury increases the farther you move your arms away. Never fully extend your arms to lift or handle material. By moving the arms to full length, you increase the amount of force by a factor of 50-to-1, and you change the location of that force to the lower back, which, by the way, is not designed to handle that type of force. Never use extended arms to lift. An easier way to look at this is to think in terms of a stoplight that you might see while driving. Green means go, the elbows tucked to the sides of the body. Yellow means caution, the elbows are beginning to move away from the body. And red means stop. Straight arm material handling should be avoided at all costs. Learn and practice good lifting techniques. Use the following steps whenever you have to lift. Think about what you're going to lift. Size up the load and know your route of travel and where you're going to land the load. Test your load. You know when it's too heavy. If the load is too heavy, get some help. Or better yet, use material handling equipment as a means to move your materials if available. Get a firm footing, both feet on the same plane about shoulder width apart. Keep your elbows tucked. Keeping your elbows tucked is key to safe lifting. Keep the load close to your body, about belt buckle height. Bend your knees. In other words, squat to lift. Tighten your abdominal muscles when you lift. Maintain the normal S curve of the back and lift with your legs. Don't twist your torso. Step in the direction of travel or swivel on the balls of your feet. And prior to work, warm yourself up. Doing simple stretching exercises will allow you a greater range of motion, less fatigue, and better posture while working. Warm-ups can be any muscle stretching exercise, but remember the following tips. Never push into pain. Stretching exercises should do exactly that. Stretch that part of the body. Slow and steady. Push, don't jerk. Breathe. Exhale as you stretch and inhale as you relax. Stretch periodically throughout the workday, particularly when you feel tired or after prolonged standing or sitting. Use percussion to warm up a muscle group. There are other simple ideas to keep in mind while working. Get into the habit of hydrating, eating properly, and dressing properly for work. Many of us are on the verge of dehydration and we don't even know it. Learn to recognize the symptoms of dehydration. But better yet, don't let yourself get dehydrated. Follow these simple guidelines. Drink plenty of liquids throughout your workday. In a normal 8-hour work shift, you should consume approximately 48 ounces of liquid, preferably water. Water intake should be at the rate of a few ounces every 15 to 20 minutes. In other words, consistently taking in water, not shock therapy. Water should be cool, not ice cold or warm, as the body absorbs cool water more readily. A good way to monitor hydration is through the color of your urine. As unpleasant a thought as this may be, the darker the urine, the more dehydrated you are. There's no reason not to consume adequate quantities of water during the course of your workday. Sports drinks, as long as they're non-caffeinated, can be of assistance, but plain old water is still the best. So stay away from caffeinated products, as they can promote dehydration. Dress for the weather. As weather gets cooler, dress in layers. Peel the layers as you warm up. Natural fibers are best for allowing vaporization of sweat as well as keeping the body warm. Eat sensibly. Light meals help to keep you alert and energized. Your work could bring you into confined spaces. There are two key ingredients in working in confined spaces: recognizing a confined space and following established protocols for working safely in confined spaces. Now, this may feel a little tight, but this isn't what we mean by a confined space. OSHA defines a confined space as a tank, vessel, silo, vault, pit, open-topped space more than 4 feet deep, and/or which has one or more of the following characteristics. It's large enough and so configured that an employee can bodily enter and perform assigned work. Has limited or restricted means of entry or exit. Is not designed for continual employee occupancy. Has poor ventilation or restricts the rescue of occupants. Now, it's important for your safety that you understand and have a working knowledge of the types of hazards along with the methods used to control or eliminate those hazards. For these reasons, when employees are required to enter a confined space, OSHA requires your employer to develop written entry protocols. This is a very detailed policy due to the nature and the severity of the hazards that you're likely to encounter. Confined spaces can be worked in safely if the entire team is familiar with the hazards and the necessary controls. For your safety, you need to participate in every phase of the entry program. Never enter a confined space without authorization from your employer, and always follow the prescribed entry protocols. Your employer will provide you with further information and training regarding confined space entries. Employees who are motivated to always do the right thing have very little to worry about when it comes to the possibility of disciplinary actions. However, serious violations of the rules result in serious consequences. Working under the influence of drugs and/or alcohol, failure to wear fall protection when required, and removing or defeating a safety guard are all violations subject to immediate dismissal. Your employer will review your company's disciplinary process with you. The best advice for anyone is know the rules and follow them. The next section of this DVD continues your safety orientation with specific procedures for fall prevention, ladders, electrical hazards, and scaffolding. See you there.